Hey guys, it is CC Garland here. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day because I am. Now, today we are going to talk about something really incredible. So if you're a member of this group, the Wholesaling Houses Future Alliance, we have an absolutely jam-packed, content-filled, valuable video today for you. So I'll go ahead and jump into it. So what are we going to be talking about today? Pulling the perfect seller list. Right? So this is the absolute foundation of your business. If you're wholesaling, you're an investor, yes, but you are a marketer. Remember that. You are marketing for sellers. If you aren't marketing, if you didn't send out some form of marketing today, your business is going to feel that impact. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but at some point it's going to feel the impact for you not marketing today. So it all starts with pulling the correct list and getting this right. So this is a topic I absolutely love. My specialty is pretty much doing anything behind the computer. I'm an introvert and I love anything computer related. I love crunching numbers. I'll talk to sellers. I've talked to sellers, cold call, did all that. But this is just really a part of the business I excel in, and it's much needed. And I will show you why. So if you have just pulled a list from ListSource, Rebo Gateway, or any other list vendor and haven't really thought about why, this video is for you. So this topic is loaded, and I'm going to try to cover everything in a very simplified fashion without getting too complicated. I'll keep it simple in this video, and possibly in the future, I'll make another video where I go into even more detail on how I pull my list, because this is just scratching the surface. So let's talk about niche list versus broad list. When I talk about niche list, we are talking about really targeted list of sellers that have some sort of underlying motivation to them. So what do I mean by that? A niche list could be a pre-foreclosure list, a tax auction list, a tax delinquent list, a code violations list. It could be an inherited property list, probate list, and the list goes on. So those are niche lists. Our broader list would be something like an absentee high equity list. So what's the difference and which one do I prefer to target? I would tell you, I target broader list, but they're targeted. So here I would put an asterisk by broader because I'm just not pulling every property in that particular county that I'm targeting. And I will show you the specific criteria that I'm using whenever I pull my list. So I would target niche lists, but I always have a broader list, large list that I'm targeting in general. So please keep that in mind. If you are just targeting a small list of code violations, maybe the code violations are stacked with tax delinquents and they're inherited properties. So you may think in your mind, wow, this is a really motivated list. True, but you have to realize this is still a numbers game. If you want to actually get to a point where you're running a business, not a hustle, you need enough leads to target so your team or you could be working every single day. It is perfectly fine to target those lists when you're starting. I understand, I've been there before, but not having a huge budget. And I've had to roll up my sleeves, jump fences, get shot at in the hood. I'm not kidding you. Get the cops called on me in the hood. All that. And we'll go into those stories later. That's for another video. But I understand what it's like hustling from the ground up. But at a certain point, you're going to want to turn your hustle into a business. So you need leads you're targeting every day. If you're doing niche lists, literally you're depending on people going through hard times in order to get through these lists. Probate lists, you're depending on people dying. Hopefully you don't have a probate list of 100,000 people. That'll probably indicate that you're in an area where you don't want to be in. There's a lot of people dying. So same thing with tax delinquent lists. There's only going to be a handful of people that don't pay their taxes, right? So while these are great lists to target and they seem like they're the perfect list to target, if you're going to do them, I would not do direct mail to them, right? So if the list is really targeted, you probably want a door knock. You probably want to shoot them a very targeted text message. Send them a FedEx envelope. One time I sent a lady a FedEx envelope with a cell phone in it. because she called me from a payphone and told me she had no way to call back. I sent the FedEx envelope with the cell phone to her address. That was targeted right there because the list determined that. It was a tax delinquent list and the property was getting ready to be sent to auction the next week. So those are the types of scenarios you'll encounter whenever you're targeting niche lists. So when I talk about broader lists, I'm talking about lists that you can blanket. So you have a particular seller or property in mind, and you go after that huge area. And those are the ones I'm going to be discussing here in this video. So the next thing we need to understand is analyzing zip codes. You need to do your research before you even start pulling your list. You're shooting in the dark if you don't do this. What do I mean by this? If you say, well, I live in New Jersey, you might just go on ListSource and pull single family residences in New Jersey. Well, there are some areas you want to stay away from. There's probably $1 million locations out there or multi-million-dollar locations on golf courses where there's no abandoned properties. There's no properties that fit your criteria of what you want to buy. Same thing. You might be in an area like I know here in Charleston where I live. There are some areas back in the day when I first started, I would stay away from. Those areas are turning around now. However, literally houses were worth lot value, around $5,000 to $10,000. Investors weren't rehabbing over there. Landlords were staying away from those areas. We want to eliminate the super low income areas as well. So I will show you how to do that. And also we will discuss the best tools to pull your list. What I mean by this is ListSource versus Rebo Gateway, pros and cons of both, why I use one over the other, and in which scenario would I use one over another. So let's go ahead and talk about analyzing zip codes because this is the first step to starting. I'm going to use an example of Phoenix. And I actually qualified all of the zip codes in a lot of the main cities in America, or at least the areas I want to target. And if y'all are in any of these areas, you can look at the tab down here and you want this, just let me know. I'll share it. I don't mind doing that at all. But here we have Phoenix. So I had my VA go through and qualify the zip codes. So what does zip code qualification mean? We're looking at three things. We're looking at the cash sales, we're looking at the median list price, and we're looking at the days on market. So those three things. I would say cash sales is probably weighted higher than the other ones, and the other two are pretty much just checks to see if we're actually targeting an area that's worth targeting. For instance, if I had 194 cash sales and the median list price was, the list price for that area was $1 million, like here, I wouldn't target that because most of those properties are going to be either on the lake or near a golf course. Those are not the types of properties we want to target. We want to target properties that are very, very cookie cutter, basic looking, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. We want to target those houses that you may not necessarily want to live by, right? So I know a lot of the areas where I'm buying houses, they're cute neighborhoods, they're nice neighborhoods, but I necessarily wouldn't want to live in. I'm not saying they're not nice, but the chances of you going through these neighborhoods and finding somebody with overgrown grass or boards on their door is highly likely. Think of areas that don't have HOAs, meaning a homeowners association. So we want to stay away from that. So keep that in mind. Here I qualified Phoenix, Arizona. And how did I determine these are the areas we want to target? This is what I did. I went online and found all of the zip codes in Phoenix, and I went one by one in ListSource to determine how many cash sales there were. Here, you can see this top zip code has 194, and I listed this in descending order. You may ask, how do you determine the cash sales? Well, what you're looking for are all the properties that sold to LLCs in the past 12 months. So what I usually do, I add a filter that indicates all properties sold in the last 12 months. And also I add an equity filter of 100%. And I do absentee. So if I have those three things, I know most likely those are cash sales. You can also get this from a realtor, which is probably more accurate and will save you a lot of time. If you guys want a video on how to qualify zip codes, please let me know and I can put one together for you. But that's sort of a topic on its own. What we want to do next is find the median list price. I use Redfin here. And Redfin works great for doing this type of stuff. Enter, and then we're going to go to Market Insights. And then here is the median sales price, 275K. Okay, it went up a little bit. I qualified this, so I think the last time we edited it was in February. So yeah, it went up a little bit, which makes sense because we're going into the summer months. But that's pretty near where it is right here for $262,000. Also, you want to figure out the days on market. And it should have the days on market here as well. Let's see. Okay, days on market, 38. So the days on market actually went down, which is really good. The lower days on market that it has, the better the zip code. Why? Because things are not staying on the MLS for very long. That means if you have a cash buyer, he's going to be able to sell that property in about a month if it's completely rehabbed, which is great. So this is a hot zip code because you have 194 cash sales and our median cash sales are 56. So we're way above the median amount of cash sales. And what I did to get the median, only thing I did was just do the median formula here for all of my variables in this column. So what we did is we have 194 cash sales, which is awesome. And median list price is 262. So that's actually around where we need it at. It's a bit higher over here, but that's fine. And then the days on market is 38 or 51. It's still really low. So this is the hottest zip code. If I was on a budget, out of every zip code I listed here, I would choose this zip code. Like if I had to choose one, and I would see how many sellers I can target in that zip code because these properties are selling fast. And trust me, when I say this, sellers know when their neighbors are selling and sellers know when their properties are being marketed to. Does that mean that you're going to have competition? Yeah, but let me ask you this. Would you want to talk to a seller that never heard the We Buy Houses message? I know I wouldn't. If I had to completely explain the whole process of selling your house in 30 days, that's a headache because it's going to take a long time just for them to get comfortable with the message. Then you have to build rapport. Then you have to contract the house. At this point, you honestly could piggyback off of somebody else's marketing. You'll get lucky if you send out 10,000 postcards to them, or if you're handwriting yellow letters. There's ways for you to stand out and to essentially piggyback on other people's marketing because so many people are marketing to these sellers. It's a numbers game at that point. So please don't look at this and say, man, 194 cash sales. That's a lot of investors in this particular market. True, because these cash buyers are probably doing marketing themselves, but you're the expert and position yourselves as the expert and you will be just fine. Put your marketing out there and go lock up some contracts. So that's how I would qualify my zip codes. And I literally just went down every property and I saw, okay, is this property or is this zip code over 55 cash sales? If it was, I highlighted it in this yellow tan color. If it wasn't, I left it unhighlighted. Was this property within 10 to 20% of my median list price? If it was, I highlighted it. If it wasn't, I didn't. I left it alone because usually if it's over what your median list price is, those are not areas where investors are targeting. And if they are, sellers might be more reluctant to sell. You'll get more resistance. So you want to stay right in the sweet spot. So all these stats that I listed down here are in the sweet spot of what investors are purchasing properties for and of what sellers are selling properties for. So if you've ever sent out marketing and you wonder why you are not getting the responses that you are desiring, it's probably because your list is messed up. It's probably because you might be targeting all these places here that I listed in white. Right? I wouldn't even touch these areas right here. And that's if you're starting off now, or if you're on a tight budget, or if you're not trying to do, let's say, more than 10,000 sellers at once. If you're not trying to pull a list of more than 10,000 sellers, definitely qualify those zip codes and definitely only target the hot zip codes. And I will sort your list in descending order. So the highest cash sales first. So here, if I want to target, let's just say, the top 5 zip codes, I'd grab these and this one. So let me show you an example of what that would look like if I use Investor Titles Toolbox or Rebo Gateway. I'm going to do an area search. And remember, guys, I use this, apply these same principles in List Source. I'm just comfortable with using Rebo Gateway because this is just what I know. And I know the data is really good. But List Source, you can get the same results. Trust me. So I'm going to put in these zip codes here. What county is Phoenix in? Let me see. Maricopa. Okay. So Maricopa. All right. And so we're going to go and we're just going to put those zip codes in here. Let's try this one. Okay, it's not popping up. I can only do one county at once in Rebo Gateway, which is one downside. But we'll just try this other one. And I remove the first one. Go back here. Okay. So from here, what criteria would I use? So for one, I would use only single family residences unless you know buyers are targeting duplexes, quads, and triplexes. That's the only criteria I would use. Also, if you're in an area where people are buying townhomes and condos, by all means, put it here. But I wouldn't suggest doing that for a majority of the markets in that I'm targeting right now. The next thing that we want to do is we want to go through and we want to do a last purchase sales date. So I like, if I'm going to do a targeted list, I'm going to start off at January 1st, 2005, just as a basis. January 1st, 2005. So why this date? Well, 2005 is when things started getting rocky in the country. That's a very light way to put it. Real estate started to fall off the rails. So I know if I target properties before 2005, I'll probably be safe with not targeting any properties that are over encumbered, meaning that are upside down. That's really not a huge issue with most areas right now if you're in a big city, because those areas most likely recovered from the recession. But if I'm on a budget, this is what I'll do. I can't take any chances, so I want to be very safe whenever I pull my list. I want every lead that comes through to be qualified. Great, you could have somebody with motivation, but they could owe $300,000 on their house and your cash offer is $50,000. You're not a short sale specialist. Those things take time. If you want a deal now, I suggest doing things safely and targeting properties before 2005 if you're on a budget. Now, the next thing I would do is target, let me see here. So we did property characteristics. I wouldn't do beds and baths. I don't go that narrow. You could end up getting too specific with these leads or with these lists. I would go individual owner, so that will remove LLCs. And there might be a few trusts on this list, but I'll manually scrub those. But on list source, you can remove trust properties. So I would definitely click that there. It'll just take out another step that you have to do whenever you're scrubbing your list. Owner occupied. I would click no. I do target owner occupied and absentee properties. But like I said, if you're trying to do a targeted list, you're trying to bootstrap this thing from the ground up, and maybe you want a list of less than 3,000 sellers, that's in your budget, then I would do not owner occupied. The next property characteristic we want to use is year built. Remember earlier when I indicated that you want to target older properties, cute properties. Think of a property that's a 3-1 single story house, brick facade. That's the type of house you want to target. In my mind, I think of an older neighborhood that's sort of nice, but it has people with their cars parked on the grass. And there might be a little bit of deferred maintenance on houses. The lots are a little bit bigger. That type of neighborhood pops in my mind when I think of that. So those types of neighborhoods have properties that are built, I would say, before 1989. So I would do a year built before, let's just say 1990. So in the 80s, 70s, and 60s. And the last thing we want to do is we want to have a loan to value filter here. So what is that? Loan to value is basically equity. So in here, I would probably do 20% of equity because I don't need the seller to have a lot of equity. They can have a little bit of equity. So in list source, it'll be 20% equity is what you'd click. Loan to value ratio is actually the opposite. So in Rebo Gateway, they confuse me sometimes. I don't understand why they can't just put equity here. But if I want 20% equity, I want to hit 80% loan to value. I know I just said that was going to be the last filter, but we have one more we need to add, and that is going to be the loan amount, the total loan amount. What do I mean by that? Basically, we want properties that have an outstanding loan amount that is around the price or a little bit below the price that we would contract the property for. So imagine if somebody bought a house for $100,000 and their loan amount is still $100,000. Say they stopped paying it, or they actually took out another mortgage on their home. And that's exactly what we can pay for it right now. That's probably not going to work for the seller because why? They owe 100. They're not going to seem like they're coming up at all. They don't feel like they're going to profit. So while that may work in some situations, we're thinking of an extremely motivated seller right now. And that type of scenario doesn't pop in my mind to be a qualified lead. In my mind, I'm checking a block. And if that lead came across my desk, I say, okay, this is going to be a little bit more difficult to work with. So we're looking at somebody who has outstanding loans that are pretty low. And I'll tell you, I was able to drill down a list and really target it in New York and still had like 10,000 leads. And I did $70,000 for total outstanding loans. So we're going to go with that because most of the properties I'm contracting are around, I would say $50,000 to $70,000. I would say unless you're in somewhere where the property values are just really high, like some areas in California, New York, like I just mentioned, or in South Florida, then you should be good putting this here at 70,000. And if you have too many properties that come up, you can always reduce this amount as well. We also want to do the first loan amount. So this basically means what they got the loan for. So basically I'm saying what they bought the property for. So we want that to be less than 70,000 too, because they can owe 100 grand, but have bought the house for, 50 grand. Same thing, they could owe 100, their first loan could have been 100 grand and they could owe 50 grand. So in that scenario, they probably won't be really motivated to sell at 100 grand if they bought it for 100,000, even if their total outstanding loans may be at like 50 or 70,000, if that makes sense. I hope I'm not confusing you guys. I know this is a pretty loaded, but this is so important. Pulling your list is so important. And I really think that's why a lot of investors struggle. All this other stuff, all these tools, CRMs, texting, ringless voicemail, all these applications that people use, Podio, Google Sheets. I mean, the list goes on. It doesn't mean anything if you don't get this right here. And this is where it starts. So I am fanatical. I preach about list pulling, and I'm very, very happy to talk to anybody that's having trouble with their list. I don't think people realize how much they need to work on this part of their business because it's not sexy. It's not cool. This isn't the best, hippest thing to do, but I'm telling you, this is like the fundamentals. This is like shooting free throws in practice. That's how important it is. So this is the criteria we're going to use right here. So let's go ahead and run our count. Okay, so we have 900 properties. Now, this isn't the amount of properties I would target. However, this is a good starting point. So if you're really trying to do this thing, just starting out, and you say you want to handwrite letters, you want to make sure every letter that you write is going to be worth something. And you want to make sure every letter that you write is basically going to go to a seller that is going to qualify if they call back. So this is a great start right here. Now I suggest at the absolute minimum of having a list of 3,000 people. That's just what I suggest, guys. Really, what makes me feel great is when people pull a list of 10,000 people, because I know it's a numbers game. And I'll run through the numbers quick like. So what we're doing right now with text marketing, and text message marketing is the absolute best marketing method that I've seen and I've used. So we're going to get the highest response rates. So you can look at this as a bare minimum, and anything else that you're doing, you're going to get reduced results because you're not texting. If you're not texting. So I'm targeting 10,000 leads. I'm going to say we are going to get 4%. So I'm sorry, 0.4% people that say yes, they're interested in selling. So let's say if we're doing 3,000 and we're going to do 0.004, you're going to get 12 people that are interested in selling. Is that enough to close a deal? Really, we're seeing about 30 to 40 leads are needed to contract a property. So you really, really have to either be creative, offer some other options like lease options subject to seller financing, or you have to be an absolute killer on the phone in order to convert 12 leads into one contract. And that's just the fact of the matter. It is a numbers game out here. I wish it wasn't. For the longest time, I tried to ignore that fact, but that's just what it is. I was going around and I wasted so much time just pulling really targeted lists. 2,000 here, 500 here. Oh, this is an inherited list. This is an absentee, high equity senior list, and these people are nursing homes. You're still going to need a lot of prospects to target, guys. I am telling you that. I preach that. If you're serious about this business, get your numbers up. If you're not closing the amount of deals you want, get your numbers up. If you are not contracting properties, get your numbers up. And if you're getting leads in and you're not closing them, there's a whole nother problem we need to address. But I will guarantee you, if you're not getting the leads you want, it's because you're not targeting enough volume. Now, I understand where the apprehension comes from, because you, like when I started, even if you're advanced, because this took me a while to understand, you probably don't really know where to spend your marketing dollars. It takes a lot to say, okay, I'm going to throw $5,000, $10,000 at this marketing method, and you really don't know if the list you're pulling is great. That's why I think a lot of people don't fully jump off the ledge and pull the trigger and do large volume, because they don't know if the list they're pulling is going to be a great one. I get it. So this is what I would do if it's targeted. I will show you what to do if you want to actually ramp up the volume, but have a targeted list in the process. So this is actually what I do. And I'll use Arizona as an example. So I'll clear these filters out and we will start over, and I'll show you what you want to do as you start, increasing your budget, closing deals, and you should be putting money back in your marketing with every deal. We put about 20 to 30% of every deal, whatever we make in our assignment fee, in marketing. So this is what we're going to do, guys. I'm not going to really focus on this right here because I'm focused on making a deal out of really anything that comes through. My acquisitions guys, my joint venture partners, they are crushing it. And we offer a few different options to sellers as they come in. If something comes in and it's in this zip code that we didn't qualify, we can make something shake out of it. Based on our buyers list, somebody will probably want a property in this zip code. Now, would I target it if I'm dipping my foot in the area? I'm trying to see if this is an area I want to target? No. I'll probably do a small campaign like I just showed you with these top 5 zip codes. But that's not the case once we get the ball rolling. Once we know that we're in a good market and our methods are working, listen, we are going to hit the ground running, and we are going to try to pull as many records and skip trace as many leads as we can so we get contracts in. So this is really the exciting part. And this is what I love doing. So if I was going to go in Arizona, in Phoenix, Maricopa County, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. This is what I'll do. First of all, I'll start with single family residences. Boom. Then the next thing I would do is I'd probably start off with the same purchase date here. I'll probably do like 2010. And I may reduce that. But I'll do 2010. And what's the other thing I need to add? All right, I'm not going to put a loan to value filter there. No equity filter there. But what I am going to do is actually still limit the mortgage. So I'll probably still do around like 70,000. So first loan amount, so that's pretty much the purchase price. I don't know a lot of people that get 2 loans whenever they're buying their first house, but it's true. Some people do. And let's see here. So single family, 70,000. Purchase date. What else do we have? Oh, we want to add year built. That's a really important one. So I'll probably do like, say 10 years ago. I'll probably do like 20, let's do like 2000 and before. Because yeah, I would say a house that was built in 2000, it will probably need some repairs now. If the seller has deferred maintenance. So we have first loan amount less than 70K. The same thing with the total outstanding loans. Purchase date, January 1st, 2010, year built. And let's see if I'm missing anything here, guys. So I'll do purchase price of less than 70,000 as well. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get our counts. So sometimes less is more, guys. We don't need all these crazy filters, but I can still get a targeted list by doing this. And I can make sure I'm removing a lot of junk. So I'm going to be removing a lot of sellers that have properties that are probably really expensive. So let's just say they're on a golf course. I really doubt if a house was, I doubt if a house is bought for $70,000, like even let's just say in 1960 is worth 500,000 now, and it's on a golf course. So that filter right there really, really makes me feel good about not targeting properties that you can't flip. I'm not saying you can't flip properties in that price range, but you want to go where your buyers are buying, and they are not flipping houses on golf courses. Some are, but not a lot. Okay, guys. So We have 58,683 properties, and I will skip trace every last one of them. However, I just remembered I forgot to remove LLCs. So I'm going to remove the LLCs and I'm going to run another count here. Okay, guys. So I removed the LLCs, and so I'm still left with a large amount of property owners, which is great. So I target both absentee and owner occupants. You may ask, well, aren't absentee property owners more motivated to sell? That's true. However, think about this, guys. If you're only targeting absentee homeowners and then you have all these other filters on it, think about how large your list is going to be. It's not going to be enough to target and to get a meaningful response rate and enough leads to close deals. So keep that in mind. I'm not saying that my numbers that I'm using are set in stone, meaning it takes 30 leads to get a deal, meaning you want, 10,000 records at a minimum. In your market, you may be able to target less. In other markets, you may need more in order to close a deal. However, this is a general rule of thumb, and I've been marketing in about every major city for the last 2-3 years. So these KPIs I'm really confident in. So that's why I'm emphasizing volume, volume, volume. You work your way up. You start off with that niche list that I just showed you guys, and then you work your way up over the course of you closing deals. So you put money back in your marketing the next month. You're able to pull a list of 10,000 sellers. Boom, you close 2-3 deals. Then you're able to put more money back in your marketing. Then you do a bigger pool, 30,000. You close 5 deals. You put more money back in your marketing. And guess what? Eventually you're able to pull these 54,000 sellers. And the absolute great thing about this is that you're going to still be closing deals as you follow up with the leads that came in from your first small marketing campaign. So that's how you scale efficiently. A lot of people want to just pull large lists and target them without really going about it methodically. And I just showed you could still get targeted while still targeting a large volume. Right? So we're just eliminating a lot of the junk. If you have sellers calling in and they're, wanting 200,000, 300,000 for their homes and their homes are brand new, it's because you're not filtering out those properties. Same thing if you're having people that have condos or townhouses and you're like, man, why do I keep on getting these condos or townhouses? I know it may seem very simple, but it's probably because you don't have a single family residence filter on it. So please keep those things in mind. Please keep those things in mind and you will succeed. Trust me. But yeah, this is the criteria I use. I just pulled a list for a guy in New York that had the similar criteria. We actually pulled a list of several thousand, tens of thousands of sellers. But I removed these filters here, the purchase price and the first loan amount. And he had quite a bit of properties. Even with some filters removed, it was still targeted. But guys, basically that is my overall process. This video is a little long and I have a bad habit of going, I'm long-winded. I go in depth with this stuff, but these are the things I really like talking about. So I think they're important. The longer the video, the more content. I will create this list. So by the time you receive it, it'll be a little bit more full. I didn't want to write everything out to confuse you because I know there was a lot of stuff I was throwing at you, but you'll have this list to assist you as you're pulling your leads. Guys, thank you so much for being part of the group. If you have any questions at all, please message myself or Ethan. We're so glad to have you. Have a great day.